true Catskill style. So longer hackle, higher wings, etc. I didn't succeed on every one. This is the Iron Blue done. Notice the curve of the wing in the front of this one. There's a curvature in the leading edge of the wing. Now look at this. Whoops, sorry. Now look at this fly. This is the ginger quill. Look at the curve here. It's in the back, and they were done both ways. Lately, I've been doing them with the curve in the front. This is a dark Hendrickson. This is a Housatonic quill, another quill body fly. The Housatonic River is in Connecticut. This is a light Hendrickson. Both, it's got a body of a light Cahill, and then the hackle of, well, either a Hendrickson or a Quill Gordon. He took his two best-selling flies and crossed them together. This is a dark Cahill. And finally, I just put this up here because it's kind of pretty. This is a golden badger with badger hackle and hackle tip wings, grizzly. And let's get started on a fly. I'm gonna tie a light Cahill because, well, it's between it and the red quill for my all-time favorite. I'm gonna start and leave about, in my mind, I leave a 3/32 of an inch space behind the eye. Now that's in my mind. I don't know if that's truly 3/32 of an inch or not, but I think it is, and that breeds consistency. I try to do it that way every time. And I'll go halfway down the shank of the hook, which extends from the back of the eye to the start of the bend. So about halfway down, and then about halfway back on the threaded area only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Puts me at about the 1/3 mark on the shank. And I don't ever measure it, but we can measure it here and kind of check it. This is a number 12 hook, and it's about 10 millimeters long, and so we should be just beyond the 3rd mark on the ruler here, and that's exactly where we are. So that's at the 1/3 mark. So what could possibly go wrong? Not too much. The first thing to go on is a wood duck feather. And I like ones, because I do a folded technique, I like ones that are flat on top. Here's a pretty good one. This one's pretty good as well. I think I'll go with this one. I'll fold it right along the stem and measure it to be at least hook length. And that's from the front of the eye here to the back of the bend. I tie everything on with an elevated pinch, trying to get this stuff right on top of the hook. And I want my thread to be straight up and down there. That way I know I'm tying this in at the 1/3 mark. And the 1/3 mark is important because if you tie it too far forward, you won't be able to leave that space at the end. It'll be difficult to do when you're winding the hackle. So, you know, as usual, you're looking ahead. I'm not going to use the winging technique that I've used for years on these, because I want to get the result when I do my winging technique. it results in a very broad wing. And I don't want a very broad wing. I want a narrower wing on this one because I'm trying to be very traditional here. And I'm going to post this wood duck feather up. It's like you're doing a parachute post. I'll divide these out. And I try to form these into wings almost immediately using thumb and forefinger of each hand. And right now I'm going to divide the wings securely. I'm going to hold this near wing up and in place, take a diagonal turn. I hope you saw that. And then one turn around the shank because I like to work with one wing at a time. And now I'm going to do the same thing, but back to front with the far wing. And then I'll just pull both wings up and take a turn or two in front. Now, right now I look at this and this near wing is fairly narrow already, but the far wing is not. So I'm gonna do some figure eights around these wings, but it's a modified figure eight, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm gonna take a turn around this far wing. I'm gonna hold it up in place. Just a turn around like that. Hold it up where I want it. And one securing turn around the shank after that. That's the modification. I'll do the same with the near wing, getting it where I want it. And the far wing still is a problem as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to do another one of these.
I said many fibers.
Sorry. I heard something. I want to get this. I want to get these wings in the same plane. And I see I've got a stray here. I'm just going to pluck it out. I'm going to go with this. I don't want to belabor it. The next thing to go on is the tail. And I've got a light ginger whiting tailing pack feather here. If you hold the tip and bend it, you can get an idea of how many fibers you're gonna have in your tail. And I like somewhere between 6 and 10. Again, this tail needs to be hook length. Now, with the Catskill fly, we always roll the tail up. I'm going to spin the bobbin up so the loop will fall the right way. Just take a loose turn. And then as you take a harder second turn, move the tail your way just a little bit. And you should get it dead on every time. And now I want a fine body on this, or as fine as I can get with fur. I'm going to use fur because it's traditional. If I were tying this to fish, I'd use superfine because I like a fine body because I fish a lot of slow water. Obviously, if I fish pocket water all the time, I could go with a broader wing. I could go with more turns of hackle, but I'm older. I fish the pools. It's getting a little coffee. All right. Um, I've got a tiny piece of red fox fur here that was taken off a bigger piece, which was taken off an even bigger piece. I'm going to use just a very little bit of this. Oh, I want to stop. I'm sorry. I wanted to stop short of the point of the hook. I'm going to use some dubbing wax on this. I don't know where I got this. This is off brand, but it's pretty good stuff.
Check is in the mail, Eric. Check's in the mail.
So anyway, um, yeah, no, I do like the dubbing wax, and I make my own dubbing wax, but it's not nearly as convenient as Al's. Uh, so anyway, what I'm gonna when I want just the fluff off the base of this basically. So I'm gonna cut some off right at the hide. Grab it. I'm gonna grab these guard hairs, pinch them, and just pull this whole thing apart. So I've got nothing but fluff here. And I want to put as little on the thread as I possibly can, which is easier said than done with fur. As a matter of fact, I'm really struggling. Let's see. There we go. Let me zoom out so you can see what I'm doing. Just tiny bits of fur as I go down. Now you notice there's no dubbing between the point of the hook on. It's just bare thread between the point of the hook and the shank. Basically, in this area, it's just bare thread, and we take that bare thread back and then go forward. I don't mind if it gets a little bulky up around the thorax, but I still don't like this. Oh my. And I think we can go with this. I've got some assorted hackles here. I've got something for everybody. This first hackle I've got is Collins hackle. And I got this for Jay Lee. But on the next fly, I'm going to use whiting, and that's for Al. So since he used to work for whiting. Catskill fly tires as a group, I'm going to say, like more old style hackle. Whiting is uh, whiting is too dense a hackle for a lot of tires. It's just not traditional. And many tires use Metz or Ewing or whatever, but they don't necessarily use whiting. I've used whiting for years. I hate to admit it, but this is not that. This is actual Charlie Collins um, from the Catskill region. You don't get any more Catskill than this hackle, I don't think. I'm just going to go to the end of the threaded area here, cut this off, and notice I um, First of all, I left a little space here to try to get this started cleanly. Second of all, I tied this off both in back and in front because I don't want it pulling out while I wind. You use hackle pliers. When I use whiting, which is always longer, I don't use hackle pliers typically. Depends on how long or short the thing is. So I think I can get 3 turns behind this, which may be 1 turn too many, but that's the way it's panned out. Hold this back, put the next turn right in front. Hold this back and put another turn right in front of that. And that's going to be it. I'll back off a turn or 2. And I want to bind this down with 3 turns forward. 1, 2, 3. Typically, I'll pluck out anything I don't like at this point. I'm going to wind 3 turns back. 1, 2, 3, holding everything back as you saw, and then a 3-turn whip finish forward. 1, 2, 3. And as you might have heard Al mention, you always whip finish forward. Of course, drop the thread. I knew that was going to happen. The hackle's fairly compact. If you look at the front, it's pretty sparse.
Looking good, Eric. You ready for a couple questions?
I certainly am. Give me a second to retrieve my thread. And yeah, what do we got?
We've got Rick at the Sierra Pacific Fly Fishers. And why were you specific about using hackle from the neck, but not the saddle?
Because that was what they did. I don't know if maybe the saddle hackle, Tom might be able, Tom or Jay might be able to elaborate on this, but I don't know that the saddle hackle was what we have today. So I think it was maybe a magnitude bit larger and just not usable for these flies. I don't know, but it was all neck hackle.
Okay, Neil wanted to know, does the fur float as well as superfine dubbing?
Floats better, I think. And it really depends on what you're after. You know, it depends on the kind of water you're fishing. In my mind, I would certainly bulk up a body with fur in a heartbeat if I was going to fish a lot of pocket water with these flies. Like the Ausable, for instance, or even the Saranac. I'd bulk the body up a little bit with real fur. The beauty of superfine is if you're fishing the pools and you want a realistic looking fly with a slender body, you can get it with superfine or quill bodies, either one. By the way, something that just occurred to me. It wasn't like these particular flies that I'm talking about don't represent everything that was tied in the Catskills. They had flies for faster water. They had the Wolf series of flies. They had, Walt Deddy's uh, coffin fly, which has a ton of hackle on it. They had bivisibles, which are nothing but hackle for the never sink. So um, they just used different flies when they wanted to fish pocket water.
Okay, we've got again some more questions. Jay Lee said back in the day there were no long saddle feathers as we have now, which with the genetic hackle. I know you pretty much alluded to that.
Yeah, that's
Dave Wilson is asking, what direction do you twist your dubbing?
I know there's a right and wrong. I just twist it the same direction. Let me put it that way. Um, honestly, clockwise, counterclockwise, I don't know. I try to get the tightest way, and I've been doing it like this forever. So I don't even know which way it is. It's just I do it the same way every time.
Al?
Um,
Hey, Al?
Yeah, somebody's asking a question.
yeah,
Al, this is Rick. In answer to that question, from last week's show, about the, Buzz Budzek, library, um, the, who was the fellow who contributed,
Wayne Llewellyn.
Wayne Llewellyn, he had a nice short video on why you should, twist your dubbing clockwise, if anybody is interested in that.
Okay, I think it's an optional thing, and Eric does it the direction he does. Thanks for chiming in there, Rick.
Yeah, I do it
Any
the
other
same way.
questions?
I can be more specific. I do it exactly like Renee Harrop does it.
Okay.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, we've got plenty of time here for another pattern. I hope you're set for one, Eric.
I'm set for one. Let's
Good.
do it. Let's do it. All right. It's another Catskill pattern, and it's a ginger quill, but I'm going to do the double wing version of it. And Tom's going to hate this, I know, but anyway, I'll talk about it when we get there. But yeah, I'm gonna they some of these mallard wing flies they tied double wing versions. I'm not exactly sure what the purpose was. Probably a more robust fly that held up a little better. The first thing that happens when you fish these mallard quill wings is the wings split. I mean, it just seems all. But if you've done it right, they'll marry right back. And even if they're split and split badly, the fly will still fish and fish successfully. Mike Lawson claims that the no hackle fishes better when the wings are all split. Now, Mike, I don't know. I have no confidence in a no hackle when all the wings are all split myself. And to me, that's a one fish fly, and it's my favorite done pattern. This will be a ginger quill, and here we go on this. Same way I started it before. 3:30 seconds behind. I want to get to the 1/3 mark again. Halfway down. Halfway back on the threaded area only, not halfway back to the eye, but halfway back on the threaded area. And I'm going to back off one turn here. Okay. Let me show something. I mean, this is supposed to be somewhat education. So this is a set of mallard wings. This is how you buy them in the store. And when you buy these, you always want to look at the backs, not the front. You don't care about this. You don't care about these blue feathers unless you're tying McGinty's or something. You care about the backs. And there is a right wing and a left wing. And if this were the leading edge, let me- if this were the leading edge of the wing, this would be the left wing. And sure enough, the quills on the back of this are lefts. And I'll show you what I mean by that. First of all, when you get one of these, the first thing you do is you take this first feather off and throw it away. I'm not going to cut any more of this with my good scissors. This and the next set of primary feathers. Okay, I'm sorry. This big tall guy here, and these and the next 5 or 6 down are the usable feathers for these. You can't use these secondaries. I've never been able to figure out how to use them. Let me put it that way. Maybe somebody can somewhere. These are not useful. It's just these primary feathers, the first half dozen after the first one. The first one, the problem is it's super stiff and so forth. Now, if I take this off of here and I show it to you, well, I'll show you the front. You'll notice that the longest fibers are on the left. This came off a left wing. This is a left feather. The ones that come off the right wing the longest fibers will be on the right as you look at them. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut slips off of these. And this is really hard to show here. Here, let me do it this way. If I'm going to cut a slip off of this, and this is a little too low, actually. You want slips off the middle third of the feather. The middle third is a sweet spot. Anything up high is not good. And that all has to do with this faint line that goes down the back of this feather. And the only usable part that you can tie in safely is from here to here. So when you get up in here, here's our line, you've got that much feather to work with. It just doesn't work. The middle third is what you typically want. Now, the beauty part of these double wings is you can use these lower fibers. And I've got a pair here. So left and right pairs, they're opposite each other. And you put them together so that their tips flare out. You notice these are double. These are rather than just 2 feathers, there's actually 4 feathers here. Each wing will be doubled on this one. And Tom is going to kill me for this, but after all our talk about glue, I have glued the bottom edges of these to keep them. In other words, this pair is glued, the bottom edge is glued, and this pair, the bottom edge is glued. And I glued it with, what is this, Solar Res, the green, the pliable Solar Res worked best for me. Head cement won't work because it leaches up into the wings themselves, and you don't want that. So we're going to try to mount these, and I want to measure them first. And I want from here on this, I want these tips to extend to just behind the eye. That works best for me on this fly. And again, I'm going to use an elevated pinch, and I really want to go elevated on this one. I want this, if the far wing gets too low on the shank, it'll split every time. These need to be mounted high. in order to stay together. And then I'm just gonna cut these off at an angle short. And now we'll try to post them up and see if we can do that without them splitting badly. And you just hold them straight up. You don't double them back. If you double them back, they'll split for sure. We've already got a little split here, but that's nothing to worry about. Just pluck it out. So just hold this as straight up and down as you can hold it. Take some turns in front of it. These feathers always seem to have a little bit of a lean to them, almost no matter what you do. I'm also taking turns down towards the eye. Okay. We're gonna have a little lean there. I mean, that's all there is to it. Take this back to the bend, and for this one, I've got some Coq de Leon. This is ginger Coq de Leon. And again, 6 to 10 fibers. Fully hook length. We'll cut this to match the this little cliff here. And again, roll it up with a very light roll and then straighten it out as you take a harder second wrap. And it should be pretty much dead on, which it is. When you go back, we're going to go all the way back to the tail. Hold the tail up. That's so when you get back here, the tail doesn't roll on the final one, and we're still good. All right. This is the remains of a peacock eye that I bleached. And this one came out really well. And I'll show you the technique I used to bleach these. And I've actually changed it slightly since I did these. But let me show you a short video on how I accomplished this, so we don't have to go down to my kitchen and watch me do it. Here comes the video. Here are a couple of large peacock eyes that I'm getting ready to strip. Notice the backs are dark, and that's what you want. They could even be darker than that. Here are a couple that aren't quite as good. The one on the left is too small. The one on the right has some clipped fibers on its right side. We're going to use bleach to strip these, Clorox in a 50-50 solution. A lot of guys do it a little differently. They'll do a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 solution and make the time longer. I'm not real good at fractions, so I do it this way. This is where I'm going to do the stripping. This is a 4-cup measuring cup. You can use anything. An Nalgene bottle is what a lot of guys use. Anything clear. I've got 1.5 cups of Clorox. I'm going to add 1.5 cups of hot water, making a total of 3 cups. That gives me a little splash room. This is what I'm going to use to stop the reaction once I'm done. A little bit of baking soda here. And this is a bowl of room temperature water. carefully measure out some baking soda, or just dump it in as I do. Just make sure you have enough and stir it around, make a solution out of it. That will kill our reaction once we get going. And here we've started, and I'm doing a test one here, and I'm using the worst one of the batch of the 4, and I'm watching the clock like a hawk. I want to do this for about a minute and 40 seconds. That's what I found recently worked best for me, that time frame. A minute and a half, I would wind up. I still had some, a little bit, enough hurl to be bothersome to where you had to do more stripping. So I'm trying 140 here. And as you can see, you've got to constantly agitate this. And don't just go one direction or the other, just change it up, swirl it around, just keep it moving. The more you move it, the better the stripping will be. Let's see, anything else? Oh, if I had, I followed this up with 3, the 3 that were left. And I made sure that I kept those separated as I swirled them around in the solution. So, and I don't like to do a lot of these at a time. I can control it better doing small batches. We're coming up on 140 here, and I'm pulling it out. And I immediately plunged it into the baking soda solution. I went right from there, right into the baking soda, and then I rinsed it off like crazy in the sink with cold water. And just to get every bit of that off. And it came out beautifully, as did the next 3 that I did. This is a fly that I just tied with the stripped hurl that I just made. It's called a mallard quill. Think Quill Gordon, only brown. I think this stripped hurl is going to work out great. And I'm back. I've changed the way I do that a little bit. I don't do the baking soda at all anymore. I just rinse them off. I also use, on my last batch, I just used 1 cup of each, 1 cup of water, 1 cup of Clorox. And that made the time have to be a little longer than the 140. Probably just the lack of, not as much volume, I don't know. But I had to go to about 2 minutes. But it's somewhere in there, and you always need to do a test go round with that stuff. And here's the result. I've plucked one of the fibers off of that, and I'm gonna tie this in on the far side of the hook, which I tie a lot of things in on the far side. It has to do with full dress salmon flies and other wet flies. I just gotten in the habit of doing that. You don't have to do it that way. The thing you want to be cognizant of is you want this black stripe to trail as you wind. You get way better definition that way. And this is one of the ones from this last batch I did. I only do those, 2 or 3 at a time. This is gonna kill Jay Lee. I'm gonna use whiting hackle on this one. Jay may not speak to me ever again. He's not, he doesn't like whiting hackle on these. And I understand his concerns. I do. Again, I'm using I'm leaving a little bit of bare stem right there. Mm. So there's one complete turn. Two complete turns. I'm going to try to take this third one right in front here. So 4 turns. That's all I'm going to do on this because this is whiting. It's denser. And I want to still get a sparse look. 2, 3 forward. 3 back. 4 back. Whatever. And a 3-turn whip finish and we're done. Now we'll try to repair any splits. I think I've got some on this far wing. Yeah. I was afraid of this. And believe me, you can typically fix a lot of splits. I don't know what kind of luck I'm going to have here tonight doing it, but if you take a little bit of time, you can certainly fix this one. And little by little, it's going back together. If you get just a single one that's split off, then you can pluck that out with tweezers. And we can take a look at the front. And it's pretty sparse, and even though it's whiting.
Looks like you recovered that wing pretty well there, Eric.
It's if I spend a little time on it, I think I could get it back to square one. I really do. But it takes time that we don't have.
Got a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
John Wright is asking, do you make a new solution for each eye? He's talking about the bleach. Or do you
That's a
just
really
keep
good
using-
question. I've found that about 4 eyes at a time works pretty well. In other words, I'll take 4 eyes, I'll take the worst one and do a test run with it. And then the other 3, I'll do all 3 at once. And that pretty much exhausts the solution. So I would say 4 eyes, and then you got to dump the solution and do a new one. That's been my experience.
And let's see, just a comment. Rick says that you have many old flies on Fly Anglers Online under
Yeah.
old flies. Yeah, you
Yeah.
did some work for them too.
Yeah. Well, just old flies. Yeah. Years ago, I used to write a column of every, was it every week? Yeah, I think it was every week for the just old flies part of Fly Anglers Online, which was well, I think the site still exists, and if you type in just old flies, you'll get a list of a lot of articles that were written. The later ones were written by me. The ones, and I probably wrote 100, 200, I don't know, a bunch of articles for them. But then there were people who wrote before I came on with them.
David Buckner is asking, how much do you concern yourself with the splay on the tail fibers?
Oh, I meant to talk about that. Rube Cross, let's go to this fly. Rube Cross would do, he'd be back here, he'd tie in the tail, and then he would do a turn underneath the tail. To splay it out and widen it out and so forth and so on. Now, Art Flick didn't like that. And I'm in Art Flick's camp only because I think I've done it that way forever. In other words, these tails, when I tie, oops, I'm sorry. When I tie this
You're on
fly,
TV, you're on the phone.
Can I use the printer first?
when I tie these flies, I try to get the tail almost together. And I catch a lot of fish with the flies I tie, so I haven't changed it. I've never. Alice Conbo was somebody else who did the one turn under the tail on her dry flies.
Didn't she do it slick and quick? Oh, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, she's unbelievable.
Rick Russell says, is there a purpose for the nude head space in front, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, yeah. There's all kinds of theories. One theory is it was to accommodate a knot they used back then to tie the fly on
Maybe a turtle knot?
the turtle knot is one thing that's brought up.
Still.
A theory I had, and I'm not sure it's valid. I have no idea, honestly. Was that perhaps they were leaving room for uh, and this wouldn't have been later on, but in the beginning, maybe they were leaving room to tie on a leader, a gut leader, after the fact, after the fly was tied. I don't know, but that's a thought I had.
It makes a lot of sense because most everything had the gut.
In the 60s, all the wet flies I bought were on cards with a nylon leader attached. All the wet flies.
Yep, they
I
sure
ever bought.
sure were. Okay, Jay Lee's comment. Charlie Collins stopped raising birds a few years ago. He still has enough stock for a few more years. He doesn't supply fly shops anymore, so you need to get with him directly. And you can probably just do Collins Hackle Google search and get there.
And Charlie only takes cash, cash or check.
Good.
I mean,
They all had credit cards and stuff for 3% and up. And anyway,
Yeah.
I wanted to comment, Jay Lee, thank you for staying up half the night and joining us from the Netherlands. So,
And by the way, I got to talk about Jay Lee a little bit. Jay Lee is one astounding tire of these, an amazing tire of these Catskill flies. I mean, his work is just exquisite, especially the hackle. But every bit of the work he does is fantastic. As far as I'm concerned, he's one of the top Catskill tires in the world.
again, Jay, you probably better get the check in the mail. Okay, anything else there for you?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, I wanted to talk about why there is the gap on a Catskill fly.
All right, Tom would know. He's
You mentioned Harry Darby's book, A Catskill Fly Tire.
yes.
It's on page 96. And it's not for a knot, for a turtle knot. There are 3 or 4 valid reasons. If they tied flies with a space in front on a dry fly for a turtle knot, why didn't they tie wet flies with a space in front for a turtle knot?
Good point.
Yeah. It's not at all for a turtle knot. One thing they didn't want to deal with, a small reason, they didn't want to deal with a hook pen. then you can wind up with a big head. Heads on the fly do nothing. You know, they're only to hold the fly together. The second reason is they move the wing back at the expense of a shortened body for a better balance so the fly would float better over water. That's why they did it. It's right on page 96 of Harry Darby's book.
Makes
Thank
sense.
you.
And with those tall wings, by the way, if they hadn't had the wing back, the fly would have fallen on its face a lot.
Forward. Right.
Because that used to happen to me. So I absolutely know that's true.
Okay, well, thank you to Tom for chiming in and
I have a question of Eric. When you tied your hackle in, do you tie it in wet or dry? And with the modern hackles, does it matter?
I tie, in other words, I don't tie it in by the tip like a wet fly. Is that what you're asking?
No. It's the way, whether you use the shiny side as you go forward versus the meaning of
And
convex.
that, okay, you can do this either way. I tie it so that the fibers on the hackle, if they angle at all, are gonna angle towards the rear, which makes tying off at the front easier.
Okay,
That's the only reason I do it that way. A lot of guys do it just the opposite with the hackle, with the fibers angled forward slightly. It's a little harder to tie off.
right. Okay, thank you.
any other questions? Eric, you've blown their minds. I can see that right now. Well, anyway, we thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we are getting ready now to move into the weekly tip, and we're going to talk about recovery from bad thread. I was going to do something else tonight. I didn't get to it because we're working on some other things. And anyway, we're going to talk about recovery from bad thread because I actually had that happen to me earlier today, part of a magazine article I was working on. And I said, well, this is a good tip. So anyhow, have you ever run into a situation where you pull on the thread and it breaks real easy? And something tells you that that's breaking way, way too easy. It happens. Thread will go bad. It will get dry rotted. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you tonight is I ran into that today working on this particular project. The thread here is the same spool of thread that you see here. And I'm going to move them all over to the Vice camera. And you see there, we've got a orange caddis in the vise. I tied that with this thread that would not, I couldn't hardly wrap it, it would fall apart. One of the things before you throw away a spool of thread like that, there may be good thread below the bad. I ended up pulling off this bundle right here. I got down to good thread again, and it was able to tie with 6/0 thread a hair wing. Nothing fancy, but it's something to show you that you could do it. So the tip tonight, very simple. If you got a bad spool of thread, pull 20 yards off of it and then test it
Take your
again.
husband's.
Oh. Or take your husband's and then all of a sudden he'll have a lot of bad thread. He'll figure out what to do with it. And tonight's tip will help you.
How did you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, there was a change over here a few years back. I can't even remember when it was, but I'll just say I'll pull a number arbitrarily out of the sky. And about 20 years ago, they started switching over from the aught system to the denier system. The denier system is a lot more accurate because the exact weight of a particular section of thread, where the aught system was more, I think, marketing than anything. As an example, 8/0 of one brand of thread is 72 denier, and 6/0 of another brand of thread is 70. Well, 72 is bigger than 70, and yet it's in the aught system supposedly smaller. I just think it was more marketing than anything, but I could be very wrong because I have nothing to base that on. Any other questions?
Yeah, how'd you know how much to take off that it was bad? Was that just a
Because
guess?
I would do this routine and I'd pull, stretch, that breaks real easy. Okay, then I would just keep going, and I kept going until I quit breaking.
Okay, okay.
And it turned out it was about 20 yards. And I think, and again, I have no proof of this, but I think it's down hidden, actually almost in a vacuum under all those layers, and it's away from anything in the atmosphere that's going to cause it to dry rot. And so anyway, I got past that and got down to the good stuff. So unless your spool of thread is just about gone, tear off a few rolls of it and see what happens as you work your way down to the spool. I mean, here a while back, I had a spool that was just totally bad all the way through. Just one of those I had forgotten in the bottom of my fly tying kit that stayed there for about 30 years. And, you know, for some reason, it wasn't any good. I can't understand. But anyhow.
Al,
Anything-
this is Alan Cure in Florida, and I ran into that where I had a lot of spools of Danville 210 wax nylon sitting too close to the window. And it spent months there, and in the winter months, that sun had a tendency to come in and shine right on that thread, and I never thought anything of it. And then I got to use it, and it ruined about a dozen spools, but I didn't, you know, I pulled off maybe 3 or 4 yards, and it was just super weak, but I didn't think enough to you know, pull maybe 10 yards off, and it might have still been good. But the UV from the sun will also mess up your thread, weaken it.
You are very, very right. Anyone else before we go into the sharing section? Well, great. We're going to sharing.
So we're gonna start with Evelyn.
Now we're gonna I gotta get the sharing. Okay.
Oh, you've got to get your thing up there.
Yeah, but I don't know, something's happened and it's not working. Okay, now let's try it again. Oh, that's your wrong one. Nope, isn't gonna work. Okay, all right, I'll edit it in later. Okay, we're now to the section we call sharing. And Evelyn is our resident artist. Evelyn, I'm going to spotlight you and you can show us the drawings that you did of Eric's flies tonight. And you're muted, by the way, so why don't you unmute?
Okay, all right. This is the one from last week. I finished it.
Okay, you managed to build that built wing. Jack Gillis can take note that there's the drawing of the one from last
Looks
week.
nice.
Yes, love it. The green drake.
Okay, here's today's.
Okay, awesome. Good sparse hackle too, Evelyn. Good job.
And here's the other one. If it's sparser yet.
Oh, I like
I
that.
like that.
She even got the speckles in the fibers on the tail.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Evelyn.
Evelyn, do you have any idea how many flies you've done?
No, you know, I thought of it like last week. And I thought maybe I should count and see how many.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Do that sometime. I'd be interested to hear that.
Okay, I will. Thank you. So-
We think so as well.
Been
I
talking to
know.
her for a year now and we haven't moved her at all on that, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Anyway, anybody else that has something they want to share?
I got something to share if you got a minute.
Just a minute, Chuck. Okay, let me find. Okay, there you are, Chuck. Just a minute. Let me get you up. Okay, spotlight for everyone. Okay, Chuck.
What this is an original Regal vise. You see the vise head?
Yeah.
What I did, I modified it by taking this clamp. This piece here is off one of the clamps you put on a table on an old, same old Thompson or I can't remember, Thompson vise or whatever. So I just took the shaft that normally would go down into the pedestal base, and I straighten it out this way because it's an adjustable Allen screw. And then I use this as it allows me to rotate. So now I have what was a non-rotating Rigo vise. And this is just a piece of nylon block, and I just drilled a hole and put a piece of aluminum shaft to go into the base.
All
But
right.
Never ceases to amaze me the creativity of the people that we work with. I mean,
But it
that's
allowed me to
everybody
have-
on this call. I mean, my goodness.
It
Great,
allowed
good
me,
job.
well, I had to do it because I couldn't afford to go buy another vise right away, and I needed a rotator.
The truth of the matter is, he was afraid his wife would kill him if he bought another vise. I know what's going on. Anyone else wants to share? Okay, great. Then we'll do a wrap, and you ready to
If the wrap works.
yeah, the wrap is gonna work. I don't know this. Oh, I know what's wrong. The number lock key gun.
Oh,
Anyway,